Hello and welcome back to Bite Size Boxing. So just before I start, I just want to say a massive thank you to all of the new subscribers who have hopped in over the last week or so on the back of the Inoue content. I'm very, very, very thankful. It's very, very nice to have you on board. And yeah, thank you for subscribing, taking the time to watch my videos, and I'm incredibly, incredibly grateful. So thank you very much for that. And if you are new here, or if you're a returning viewer, by all means, if you haven't already, please subscribe. I'd much appreciate it. So, I just want to talk about the kickoff press conference that we had the other day for Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank Jr., or should I say Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn 2. So, it's a strange one really, because this fight in the lead up for the first fight, I always felt it was a weird fight. I always felt it was kind of a forced fight. But I have to be frank, I've kind of come round to the fight in as much of Conor Benn doesn't really look like someone who wants to take his career seriously at welterweight. Chris Eubank Jr., neither he hasn't been taking his career seriously up at super middleweight or really middleweight. So they're two fighters who are kind of trying to almost ride this gimmick fighting sort of thing. So I suppose in that way they kind of deserve each other. Chris Eubank Jr., of course, he's fought for world titles up at super middleweight, was in there against Groves. He's had a few notable fights up at super middle. He's fought De Gale as well up there. He was at middleweight for many years, but then he moved up to super middle about, was it 2018, 2017, something like that, and he's been up there pretty much ever since. Conor Benn, of course, was on a pretty good sort of building kind of thing at welterweight. I was quite impressed personally when he beat Sebastian Formella, because for me, that Sebastian Formella fight, although Sebastian Formella is not a world level fighter at all, he's a tough fighter, he's a durable fighter who's good at going the rounds, good at navigating the rounds, and he's at a certain level. So when he got past him, it told me that he was going to be at a certain level, Conor Benn. But what he didn't do was he didn't build upon. He's fought people like Van Heerden, Granados, these shot old fighters who had nothing left, and then he would spark them out. And then you had Eddie Hearn saying he's the best welterweight in the world, he's an elite prospect, and it was obviously all bluster. But for me, it was always a little bit weird the way they built Conor Benn, in as much as they got to that Formella point, and that's where you go, right, okay, we know he's at a decent level, let's put him in against the English champion, let's put him in against the British champion, let's put him in there against an Echo Esserman or someone at that level, and they never did. Why is that? That's a question I'm putting out for all of you guys here, because for me, the fact that they never took Conor Benn the traditional route, where they took him, area, English, British, Commonwealth, European, world, that, again, for me was always a massive flying red flag, because that's what Eddie would normally do with 99% of other prospects, but for some reason with Conor Benn, they always had an aversion to taking him the traditional route. They took him the ranking belt route, let's get him some obscure, WBA trinket, and then that'll get him a ranking. And so, for me, I always felt Conor Benn's kind of building was strange. So the fact that he's kind of just taken this gimmick fighter route, going in, jumping up 2 weight divisions to fight Chris Eubank Jr. doesn't really surprise me. But again, the build-up for the first fight, I always felt it was a weird fight. It felt like a forced fight. You, of course, had all the controversy with the failed drugs test from Conor Benn, the rehydration clause on Chris Eubank Jr. So, yeah, it was a weird fight, but again, the first fight did deliver. It was a spectacular fight. It was a really good fight. It was one of those I was a bit disappointed I didn't get to watch it live, because I actually felt sick about an hour before the card started. So I was all sat down to watch the card. I suddenly didn't feel well, and then I went to bed and I woke up in the morning and I missed the whole thing. But I think watching it live, it would have been a bit more exciting. But I watched the fight, and yeah, it was a fantastic fight. One of the best fights we've seen this year. So there's no doubt about it. The fight itself delivered. But again, does it need a rematch? I don't know. That the first fight was conclusive enough. I didn't feel like it was massively controversial. I thought Eubank clearly won it. And again, the circumstances around this fight, again, I just don't really like. You've got, again, someone like Eubank being clearly drained. I mean, in that first fight, he looked horrendous. Not just on the scales, but when he was walking to the ring, I'm not sure how many of you guys clocked this, he had like grey almost skin colour. And when he was in the ring, he looked really dry. He wasn't sweating much. Unlike Conor Benn, who was under the lights, you could see he was sweating, he was perspirating properly. Eubank Jr. wasn't. Eubank Jr. obviously still had to adhere not only to a weight cut that he just about missed, but also a rehydration clause the morning of the fight, which meant that he went in there very clearly not well. And so you had a Eubank Jr., who was nowhere near firing on all cylinders and has already passed his best, against a blown-up welterweight. And so, for me, it is just a bit of a weird fight, even now. Yeah, the first fight delivered, but again, it was the circumstances in which it delivered under. If you had a fully hydrated 168 Chris Eubank Jr. against a welterweight Conor Benn, and they're both at their best, well, Chris Eubank Jr. walks through him like a doorway because he's so much bigger. So instead, they have to kind of... There's controversy around, Conor Benn in as much of how he's built himself up to the weight, and then you've got Eubank Jr. who's artificially being drowned to the weight so they can meet in the middle just so they can build on the back of this legacy their fathers had. It's just weird to me. So yeah, I don't know. It's... Again, I'm looking forward to the fight, and as much of the first fight was good, so I think from an entertainment point of view, I don't see the second fight not delivering in that regard. I think it will be entertaining. But I do find it all a bit hypocritical that, you'll have Eddie Hearn crying tears about fighter safety, crying his eyes out. It's tragic when, Patrick Day passed away on his card. But yet, when he had a fighter on a main event in Chris Eubank Jr., who ultimately his life was on the line and could have lost his life, right? Let's be really frank. He was on the scales, he failed to make weight, he was clearly struggling to make weight, and he went in there clearly dehydrated. You had Conor Benn and Eddie Hearn smiling and laughing, money emoji, ha 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 ha. He's going to have to pay us money now because he had a fighter going in there that was basically malnourished on the scales. So it's okay when an opponent's fighter, an opposing fighter goes in there and he's, his life is on the line potentially. Well, that's okay. Ha 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 ha. Oh no, a fighter's passed away on one of my cards. Well, that's terrible. It's very hypocritical. So for me, I don't like all of that. It just kind of shows... I mean, promoters are promoters. It just kind of shows you... I shouldn't be surprised, but still, it's a bit scummy, isn't it? That being said, I think some of the allegations that Eubank Jr. made at that press conference, where he said that Eddie Hearn was blocking... and the board were colluding to block his ambulance from being able to get out of the stadium when he needed, treatment and all of this kind of thing after the last fight. I mean... Yeah, I wouldn't go there. I think that's, again, he's already heard legal letters apparently from Hearn, so I'm not surprised. It's dicey territory. I certainly wouldn't be going into those kind of waters, and it's muddy waters to swim in. But again, for someone like myself, I don't know what goes on again behind closed doors. That's not my business. That's their business. But it's getting a bit catty, isn't it? In the build-up, it's certainly murky waters, and. Yeah, I don't really know what to think of all of that, to be honest. But is it a case of, is there skullduggery going on? I don't know. Or is it just a case of that there's been so much shit that Eubank Jr.'s had to deal with that he's sort of getting paranoid at this point? I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest. I can see a world in which Eubank Jr. has felt like he's had to, he's drawn the short straw so much in these sort of the build-up to these couple of fights that he's now, getting a bit paranoid about things. I don't know, but it's certainly a strange one. The whole build-up for this, again, it's exciting. You've got the allegations flying back, potential law, proceedings going through court and all this kind of stuff. So, yeah, it all adds to it. It adds to the event. But again, the fight itself is a weird one. As I say, I still feel the same way about the second fight as I did the first one. Even if it delivers, again, it's delivering on the fact that we've got a guy in there who's not well. Going in there. Chris Eubank Jr. is, 36, 37 now? He shouldn't be making 160 with a rehydration clause. Yes, he signed for it. I'll take that. Yeah, he signed it. So you can say it's his responsibility. At the end of the day, it's his problem to deal with. But still, if something really, really bad happens, and I hope to God it doesn't, but if something really, really bad happens, the look this has on boxing is bad, really bad, because this is a fight that has been forced through at every given opportunity. There were plenty of forks in the road after the first fight got cancelled where people could have gone, look, at the end of the day, we had a fighter who really shouldn't have been making weight. The other fighter failed a drugs test. The optics of this are horrendous. Maybe we, go in different directions with this, because if this does go pear-shaped and, the ish hits the fan, this is going to leave boxing with a really, really bad black eye. But yet and still it got forced through because there's money to be made. And yeah, we're here again with a rematch. But it feels like the kind of circumstances around this fight, you're rolling the dice every time you put these two guys in the ring together, I think. Sorry, I was just halfway through my point and then the doorbell rung. So I'll just wrap up what I was saying here. So again, it's a fight I'll watch, it's a fight I'll cover, it's a fight I'll talk about and debate with you guys on this channel, of course. But again, I'm looking forward to it in as much as I say it'll be good. It'll be a good fight, it'll be a good scrap. I have no doubt on that. But again, the circumstances surrounding it in the build-up to the first fight, the circumstances ultimately to get these two in the ring, to meet at a catch weight as such, well, 160 with rehydration calls, I don't like it, to be honest. It's not organic. Again, it's just cynical. It's a cynical cash grab. So I'm not a particularly big fan in that regard, but what can you do? It is what it is. You guys let me know what you think. Are you guys looking forward to this fight? I'm sure you are, in as much of it's going to be good action. But again, it's just a weird fight. Like, I would have much preferred to see Conor Benn continue his trajectory at welterweight to try and pick up some of those belts. As I was saying earlier, you know, go through the traditional route and see what level this guy can reach. Particularly now when you look at how open it is at welterweight, you can see a pathway for someone like Conor Benn. And for Chris Eubank Jr., I mean, again, there's a pathway at middleweight for him if he'd wanted it, because it's pretty much wide open at middleweight. Super middle, yeah, it's looking a bit more sticky, so maybe this was an option for him because, you know, he's not going to be fighting Canelo and he's not going to be beating Canelo, is he? So, yeah. But again, I don't know, man. It's just a weird one. For me, there was a pathway for both of these guys if they'd sort of continued on their separate trajectories. And anyway, Eubank's really long in the tooth as it is, so how much longer has he got left? But for Conor Benn, I think he should have just continued doing what he was doing. But here we are. We've got a rematch and... yeah, what do you guys think? Let me know. Take it easy, guys. Bye.